Hi, I'm Lou Powell, Head of API Enablement at PK, and this is the first installment of a multi-part video series on the dynamic enterprise. We were inspired by Blinkist, which boils books down into 15-minute blinks to produce snackable video content that executives can consume in a handful of minutes. And rather than tying you down with a 30-page white paper on how digital transformation is dead, we're going to share decades of collective wisdom in less than the time it takes you to drink your morning coffee. That's right, I said digital transformation is dead. To honor its passing, let's take a look at its evolution. So the first thing I want to talk about is what is digital transformation, because I think there's a lot of differing perspectives on it. And simply put, digital transformation is a shift from a manual or an analog process to a process that primarily utilizes web technologies to create efficiencies and better consumer experiences. So digital transformation might be moving from a faxed in order to an online order placement, or from an atlas book that you use for navigating to a downloadable MapQuest map, or eventually to a Google map on your phone, or from a call center call-in experience to an online customer self-service experience. So the challenge with the idea of digital transformation is that it really wasn't and isn't a singular thing. There have been many transformations over the last 20 years. So the internet became publicly available in 1991, and by 1995 there were only 16 million users worldwide, so it wasn't like it was becoming rapidly adopted. But this was where we started to see the birth of companies like Yahoo and Google, who are still, Google, who is still the predominant player in the marketplace today. But by 2000, we see our first shift. There are now 361 million users on the internet, and the internet as a real-time broadcast mechanism for gathering and consuming information starts to become a really important consideration. So there's our first big digital transformation. It was from the classified ads to Craigslist, or it was the shift from the newspaper to movie listings online. It was all of these broadcast type places where we see all of this innovation about creating and consumers consuming real-time information. But by 2005, we start to see another radical shift. So by this time, there's about 1 billion users on the world, on the web worldwide, and you have another shift, which is what Tim O'Reilly calls Web 2.0, where we shift from a broadcast medium to an interactive place, where the web is more about doing business than just learning things. So we start to see the emergence of, the adoption of companies like Amazon that have been around for a really long time, but really haven't come off the ground. All of a sudden, we start to see consumers engaging in e-commerce, and we start to see social media coming off the ground, where people are starting to engage their social groups, and Netflix starts to create this new way of consuming your video content rather than going to the video store. They send them to your house, but you've got access to this amazing library. So we have these interactive processes. So there's our next big shift. It's to mobile and social and communities now influencing behaviors of companies in real time. So this was a huge shift in behaviors and how we create adaptive consumer experiences and those types of things. By 2015, there was another interesting phenomenon that took place. We now have such a body of information available to us that analytics and predictive analytics are starting to become really, really powerful mechanisms for companies. So here's our next shift, is we see analytics, personalization, and predictive understanding of consumer behavior starting to play a role in the success of companies. So there's this whole new set of technologies and this next digital transformation that we need to make in order to present consumer experience and channel experience that creates this continuity. So retail is now starting to struggle with e-commerce starting to come off the ground across the board and be adopted and become a really, really common thing. And then by 2020, so when we look at where we're at today, we've got about 4.7 billion people, so 80% of the world are now on the internet. And IoT the voice command inside of your home and inside of your car, IoT in implements in industry and agriculture and in manufacturing. We start to see all of these things taking place, as well as in retail stores and in consumer point of sale experiences. And now we're not just looking at how these technologies are working, we're looking at how do they interoperate together in this immersive, pervasive technology world, and how do we create ecosystem experiences that feed one another and create great experiences. So there's yet another shift. So you can see that there's been all of these shifts in digital, and they're not one thing, and the technologies represented by them vary wildly as you start looking at what we need to do to keep up with the next transformation. And it's not over. We're looking at another digital transformation coming soon that we're not even aware of, and we're still trying to figure out the last one that happened. So digital transformation only solves for a point in time. It transforms you from where you're at to a place you're targeting to be able to do this new thing. But what we really need to be focused on is becoming more dynamic enterprises. A dynamic enterprise is one that is capable of quickly responding to change in technology and consumer engagement, and that those changes do not create disruption. Those changes are inherently managed through the process, through the culture, through the way that the organization behaves as it's moving forward. So in this video series, I'm going to talk to you about the dynamic enterprise. What capabilities do you need to create? What culture should you be focused on? What organizational structures should you have in place? And how do you need to focus so that you can naturally respond to today's innovation-driven marketplace?